and welcome to another jungle tutorial. And in this video we are going to take inspiration from my 5 differences between you and Challenger video that I did in January, except instead of applying it sort of as an overview, or in that case using Aatrox as a specific example, we are going to be taking a look at the differences in playstyle and effectiveness between your average Kayn player versus a top tier Challenger Kayn player. Now this video is a byproduct of my Camelot page, so if you have an idea for a video that you might want me to take, you can create a bounty for me and you'll have a chance to have your video topic featured on the channel. Now don't worry, this isn't yet another split screen-a-thon. There will be fancy effects and we'll be taking different looks at what makes a Challenger player so good on Kayn versus the average player and how you can apply those principles to your own game in order to improve your own Kayn gameplay. Now we will be looking at this from a blue and red perspective. However, there are some more intricacies in regards to making blue Kayn successful, so we will focus a little bit more on that. And we're going to go from an early to mid to late game phase, showing what to do and what not to do. And because of the change to his passive recently, you have a bit more versatility in terms of getting your form sooner, provided you are studying the game off right. And in this case, you will see our Challenger Kayn obviously does the typical red to Krugs to Raptors clear before heading to the top side, whereas our Gold Kayn player has started on the Raptors and then goes and waits by the scuttle, lazily warding the enemy's blue. There's no consideration for scuttle control before the minions spawn, so you have no idea where the enemy jungler is, but at the same time, you can always do 2 camps before heading to a scuttle depending on what your route is going to be. However, you don't need to start Raptors anymore. Getting a leash on the red is always faster and helps set up the rest of your clear much more efficiently. However, if you need to start Raptors or it's a play you want to do, you can. It's just don't go from Raptors to the scuttle. You want to get that red buff definitely before you head into rivers. Now our Challenger Kayn has gone and taken that top scuttle, and before he does anything else, he's already looking for pressure. A lot of Kayn mains even tell you, hey no, we need to farm, we need to play safe. No, skirmish, gank, pressure. That is the meta. Get that form as soon as possible. He uses the Rift Herald Pit and a chain together E through all the terrain to get a really nice angle of attack, which is basically the core thing about ganking. If you don't have a good angle of attack, the gank is more doomed to fail than otherwise. Now, yes, it's Challenger and the enemy Kha'Zix. I don't know, maybe he just woke up or something, but he shouldn't be trying to make a play in this situation, and he also falls. Now, if we switch back to our Gold player, after taking that bottom side scuttle, he tried to move across to take the top side scuttle. You're not Xin, and secondly, you didn't even do your red buff yet. He finds out his blue is stolen, so he takes his wolves and then rotates all the way to steal the enemy's blue before falling back to his red. That's a really inefficient, long, roundabout, waste of time, illogical clear. Now, all of you are gonna comment, hey, I'm gold, there's no way this guy's gold. He's gold, and guess what? Lots of people make these mistakes, and yes, lots of people also do really intelligent clears at this level. The reason I'm showing you this one is because it combines a couple things. One, terrible misconception and misunderstanding about clear routes and ganking pressure early. No concept of what the ideal early game process is for your champion to succeed. Now on that second note, you will notice that he is not kiting camps nearly as well as our Challenger Kayn. They take a lot more damage, they don't actually kite, they don't avoid any auto attacks from the monsters, and Kayn is forgiving because of the heal on his E. People get a false sense of accomplishment with their clears because their health is sort of decent. Well, imagine it could be almost full if you were actually doing what our Challenger Kayn is doing versus what your Gold Kayn is doing. And that varies from player to player, from elo to elo. Just pay attention to your health and sustain in the jungle. Now, going back to our Challenger Kayn, not only did he get a gank off on the top lane after doing a scuttle and 3 bot side camps, he also, once he cleared the top side camps, went back and did the exact same ganking path. TP down, flash down. He wants his form as soon as possible. He's cleared his whole jungle and gotten off 2-3 kills. That unlocks a very early form. Now before we move into the later stages of the early game, let's consider our Challenger jungler and another Gold jungler when the situation becomes a bit more difficult and they have to adapt to their environment. Now the Gold jungler in this case does a normal clear, except again he's starting Raptors going to the red. Guys, you're allowed to get a leash as Kayn. You're allowed to start off like a normal jungler. But in this case, the Gold jungler goes into the river for the scuttle crab, and you have to understand who you are. Firstly, taking E second is a bit more of a viable solution because you can use that E to navigate the terrain and heal yourself up between those early camps where you don't really need W due to the fact that you have smite and a low cooldown on Q. And because of this, he gets caught out in the river, and instead of just backing off immediately, he sticks around to fight a little bit, and then eventually he dies. And now, some people might be asking, well, what's the benefit of taking that E second instead of W? Well, look at this. Our challenger jungler feels a bit cocky, he wants to invade the red, have a delayed invade, but the enemy top laner is there, chases him off, chunks him, and now you've got a problem. You can't get a leash, there's not enough time to go to raptors, and so what a lot of people don't realize is you can actually get level 2 off of wolves. So he heads to wolves and takes those, and now look very carefully. He takes E and he uses the full extent of the E's mobility to get to the scuttle crab and take that also. So he's got scuttle crab control because they have wards in the rivers to see where the enemy jungler might be. There's no need to be like the gold jungler where you know the Lee Sin started on that side of the map, given you would have paid attention to where he showed which lane showed late in terms of leashing. And you also would have known had you just placed one trinket ward in the bush to see, hey look, Lee Sin is coming to the scuttle, perhaps I should just go to the top side and take that one. So look at how he uses his E to navigate the map scaling. He goes from the top side to the bottom side using the tower as a conduit to keep that E active. A lot of less experienced, less able Kayn mains will not even use his Q or E for map scaling, and that's going to be a transcending factor that we're going to talk about in the later stages of playing Blue Kayn. And now the safety net of our challenger jungler is playing with high IQ pathing and intelligent map movement. He's able to quickly take all his camps, get those off the map, secure his buffs, and when he goes and looks for that respawn of the scuttle and he gets collapsed upon, he doesn't stick around. He uses that E and he gets out of the situation. Give it up, it's not worth dying over, and he knows eventually he will have a moment where he can gank, get his form, and apply pressure. Contrast this with the gold jungler, who didn't give up the scuttle, took the wrong ability second, wasn't kiting camps properly, and then instead of giving up camps when being invaded, goes in and dies multiple times to the Lee Sin, who is applying a lot of pressure, and it sucks, and your laners aren't going to rotate in low elo, but the worst thing you can do is put yourself further behind and feed the enemy by dying to them. And we shall look at the playstyle required to get that, as well as to really dominate the game. However, let's look first at the mistakes made by an average Kayn player looking to carry as a Shadow Assassin. You will see clips on screen now of various occurrences in the game which are hindering his ability to do anything good to try and win. And this is where the risk comes in Shadow Assassin. You have to be much more aware of your actions and the punishments you can get if you don't do them properly. So you'll see missed skill shots, not using the full duration of the E ability to really flank and dominate the map. Also, gross overestimations of damage versus enemies that are 2 levels up, putting yourself in bad situations where the enemy can collapse on you because you are thinking, hey, I'm Shadow Assassin, I can go all in with all my damage. Well, you know, you kind of need items golden level for that, especially as a squishy assassin. And if you're in a neutral game or behind like in this one, it's very important that you are playing intelligently, and we will see examples of plays while playing ahead versus playing behind from our challenger Kayn in a second. But for example, look at this play from the Blue Kayn in gold. He's sitting to try and make a pick, however they're behind, which means he doesn't have the item and raw damage to be able to take out 2 or 3 people at once. And basically it looks quite funny because he's using his E and he's rotating around in circles, eventually goes in and dies. It looks like he's done a lot, but he's actually done nothing and he just died. And you'll see multiple occurrences of trying to rush in from the front and he just ends up dying, and that's not great at all. So let's reverse and now compare what you just saw on screen, or at least a sample of it, to what a challenger Kayn player would be doing in the same situations. Now obviously he is ahead because of his early game actions, which makes life much easier, but that's part of playing the Blue Kayn build. You cannot afford to shoot yourself in the foot over and over and over again and be behind by having an inactive early game. Right, now step 1 here, even if you don't have your form quite yet, which you might not always at level 6, the patience exerted by our challenger Kayn is excellent. He uses his Q to go over walls into pink watered bushes where you know the enemy is not going to be, and then have the patience of knowing when to go in. Now, if you don't have your form yet, you obviously don't have as much benefits to your E as when you're a Blue Kayn already, but having patience to know when to go in, to use your ult, is one of those deciding factors. Now in this situation, he does just that to get a kill on the Zoe, and then he can fall back into his jungle to clear his own camps. Same principle as always. And now to demonstrate the big difference in late early game Kayns is this. After clearing those bottom side camps, he uses his E, once again insane map scaling, he chains it together for a much longer period than you see lower ranked Kayns do. He secures the scuttle, again goes to the Baron Pit, use that Baron Pit and Dragon Pit for mobility depending on what side you're on. Gives you easy access with your Q and E to follow up. Now he wants to go for that invade, however the Zoe has cut him off. Which means again, don't stick around and try and fight. Even if you don't have your form, just use your E to get some vision and then get out of the situation. However, if your pathing and mobility and presence is this much better than the enemy jungler, as it will be if you are such a high rank player, you can always turn that around, that negative invade around, by going to the mid lane and trying to get a gank off. Now while he doesn't get a kill, and he moves to what he thinks is a secure place to go back to base, when the Zoe tries to snipe him from going back, he's not shopping. He's watching the map, he's looking for an opportunity at the last moment to turn if necessary. This allows him to avoid CC and then sneak back in with the E to kill the Zoe. Yes, he had to burn his flash, but what began as a very nice kill on the Zoe ended up with a clear of his whole map, a scuttle crab, an invade to see what camps were up, a tower dive, and then an opportunistic kill as he tried to punish him. All of this possible with his high use of the map scaling available in this champion. And you also do have good objective control. He uses the dragon pit, as I said you can use also, to wait to do the dragon. He's trying to bait someone in to come and do that scuttle so he can pounce them and get that assassination. However, at the same time, the Kha'Zix shows bot lane for a gank, and well, basically at this stage, when you are so far ahead as Shadow Assassin, that's a free kill, and from there you can take scuttles, dragons, counter jungle, take everything you want. The core principle is to move fast with purpose and use all of the tools available to you. You contrast this with the Gold Kayn, who wasn't doing any of these things and was just basically running into people's faces trying to get kills. That's not exactly how you do it. Also look at situations when they're behind and you get caught out in a tough match, or you're getting collapsed on and you either blue Kayn, you don't want to be CC'd. Using your Q, E in corners to get out of situations like our challenger does here is very important to be able to do, rather than just sitting there and dying. Now look at these clips when you are trying to close out a game or in late game situations, how the blue Kayn flanks from the sides, and even if you die, or even if you're not exactly getting off all the kills you want, you're at least taking 1 or 2 targets with you. You're coming from the side using long range E attacks, which means you can dive the backline without having to run face first and dying and getting chained into the CC. You're burning GAs, you're burning Zhonya's, you have that suction effect. And obviously, teams in lower elos won't always follow up, but at the same time, they won't always be perfectly grouped like that. There'll be a lot more chaos where you can pick people off if you're pathing using the examples you see on screen now to get off maximum damage and maximum attacks. Hopefully, you've seen a difference between the two different Kayn plays and how they approach the map, the early game, as well as the late game skirmishes and assassination attempts. Now, a lot of people do go Rhaast as a byproduct of really doing nothing. Look at this fast-forwarded example. What does it look like in comparison to what we've seen earlier in the video? A lot of staying on my side of the map, a lot of farming my own jungle, showing up here and there, not really ganking. Oh look, I'm Red Kayn. That's not really how you want to get it, and if you are going to go Red Kayn in this challenge example where you have multiple CC enemies, high tanky targets, you want the percentage max HP damage, you have to be very careful about how you approach the game as Rhaast. You can get kited up much more against comps that have a lot more range and slipperiness. However, if you are good at landing your W's, if you know when to peel, engage, and disrupt, you can still have good success and accomplish the same sort of task, just with more survivability and, let's just say, more disruption. However, if you're going to roam the map inefficiently, you're gonna not really know your true purpose in fights, you're gonna overestimate your damage and survivability, you're not gonna be able to 1v4 with a ton of CC either. Hitting your W on the right targets at the right time, having those engages with follow-up can be the deterministic factor whether you can carry or lose with Rhaast. Now in the gold examples you're seeing, I didn't choose a game where he was behind, I chose a game where he was neutral, and they actually did end up winning, but you do see the numerous mistakes. Yes, he's able to get off some good damage, but he's in the wrong place, his positioning is off. Rhaast's power is in his survivability and how difficult he can be to deal with when you are far ahead, especially as a squishy, but even more so as a tank because he has percentage damage HP. You have to be able to dodge CC skills with your ultimate, with your Q, and our gold player just really wasn't doing that until this very end of the fight where he gets ulted by the Lulu and he actually does a lot more frontline, sustain, and survives while picking up a few kills. Now if you contrast this to the challenger plays we see, even though W's are missed, the in and out gameplay and the survivability is much more prevalent, including a triple kill and an attempted at stealing the Quadra. And whereas with the Shadow Assassin you would try hover on the sides, threatening that insane backline dive, with Red Kayn you're flanking with your E, which is much more limited, with the W knock up CC, because if you can get that off followed up with some Qs and an R, it can actually take someone off the map even without your team's help. But you're acting as a front line and sometimes lower rank players, and this is where the mechanic side of it comes into it again. If you're missing all your Ws and your skill shots, yeah, you might get a kill by accident just as being more forgiving as a champion than Shadow Assassin, but with Rhaast, you want to be able to hit those knockups and you want to be able to disrupt accurately in team fights, fighting like a fighter in a good way. But the early and mid game is very much the same in terms of how you get your form and how you farm and clear. So hopefully you're able to get a good idea of some examples of what's good and bad when you're playing both the Shadow Assassin and Rhaast. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to Camelot for allowing this video to be made. Please like, share, and comment if you did enjoy. Consider subscribing for more League of Legends and jungle videos coming very soon. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.